Welcome to Growth Minded Conversations. We're your hosts, Amy Diestelkamp and Paula Grimes from Growth Minded Talent Solutions, where we talk about the real leadership and hiring decisions behind building a growing business.
Let's talk about creating a relationship with our people. I like the hook of culture isn't pizza parties because, at least for my generation, that's been like a running joke. Like, you companies, especially corporations, they will spend thousands and thousands of dollars on things like tchotchkes, mindless gifts, and crappy pizza parties and events that people don't really want to go to and they don't feel bring value to them. But yet you ask them for a small raise and they're like, there's no money in the budget for that. It's like, stop giving me the things I don't want and give me something that matters, right?
I hear a lot too of like people who say the culture of my team is we all go out to happy hour together. And
Yeah.
there are people on the team that is not enjoyable to them. That is actually stressful to them. So is that truly the culture we want to develop? And are we as leaders doing something that we enjoy and pulling people into something we enjoy? But to your point, it doesn't give them any value. It
Yeah.
doesn't actually make them feel closer. It actually makes them feel stressed.
We've all been in a situation where we've been gifted something that made absolutely no sense. And you could tell the person who gave us the gift must not know us very well. You mentioned one time you think butterflies are pretty. And from then that point on, that person gets you a butterfly gift every single year. And you're like, I don't care about butterflies, but that's the gift I get every single year. They never took the time to actually get to know me. Why I might like butterflies, what else I might like in addition to butterflies. And so now I get butterflies as a birthday present every single year.
Yes. And does that really have anything to do with the culture of our team?
So how are we as leaders keep giving our team members butterflies when they could care less?
I think it actually comes down to what is culture?
Mm-hmm. Ooh, that's a really good question, Paula. What is culture? I think culture is an environment where people know that they understand the values of the group as a whole, and they also understand how they are contributing, and there's reciprocity in their contribution.
Totally makes sense. And I'm going to go back to something you said. All comes down to values.
Yeah.
So, have you identified what the values of your business is? Because everybody is in business for you for a reason. They have somewhere along the way aligned with the perceived value that you bring. And if you don't identify that, it's going to happen by default because we are what our behavior shows us to be. If one of my key values is integrity, integrity means honesty to me, always doing the right thing. And that's how I always show up, is doing the right thing. I don't necessarily have to communicate that to people because they see my behavior showing them. Like, oh my gosh, even when Paula has to give something up to make it a win-win situation, she's willing to do, right? The problem being, though, is if it happens by default, somebody may think they're aligned with you and you get into business together and then you find out along the way you're not aligned. And now there's this disruption in your culture because somebody's in your culture who's not aligned with your culture. And because you've gone there by default, you don't know why the alignment isn't there. You just feel it and it's a pain and it's slowing the business down and it causes disruption and chaos. Where if
Yeah.
we go in with it, defining what our values are, being really clear on what we stand for, what is most important to us, and how we behave in our business, then we attract those people in. And if we happen to attract somebody in who's not in alignment, we quickly realize why they're not in alignment.
You spend a lot of time at the very beginning. I'm a new business. I've got one or two employees working under me. We spend a lot of time focusing on this development of values, talking about it because we've got the time. But then 2 or 3 years go by, and now you've got 4 or 5 new people on the team, and you didn't have a system around how you continued to train and onboard them into the culture. And it's gotten away from you. You looked up and you realize like you didn't have a culture keeper. So now the culture's run away from you because nobody on the team, you included, was keeping their eye on the culture. So you can start off strong and get derailed, or you can start off not having any culture or values defined and it never gets established.
And it's so easy to get off track because we get caught in the busyness, the success of the business, and we need more people and we're just ballooning. And I think all of us have seen corporations that had a really strong value proposition when they're small. I'm actually going to use Home Depot for this. When Home Depot first started, you would go in there and the customer service you received was phenomenal. You could ask anybody a question and they could answer it, or they would immediately find somebody to get you the answer. And then as they've gotten bigger and bigger, I feel, and this may or may not be true, but I feel they've lost that initial culture that they started. And it can happen so easily because you bring in more people, and part of their onboarding isn't defining who they need to be when they are in business with you. You're going to lose it.
Yeah.
Because they're going to override it, not intentionally. They're just going to be who they are. And you haven't said, this is how I expect you to behave. If they're not given that, they're going to do whatever their default is. And then to your point, you're a runaway train now. Like, how do you get it back?
Yeah. I think there almost needs to be two expectations here when it comes to culture. There's an expectation around, for the general audience, the team at large, this is who we are, this is how we show up. But then for leadership specifically, there has to be the expectation of we have to drive this every single day. There are people that participate in culture more passively, the people that are following, that we are developing, that we are leading. And then there are people that have to participate in culture actively, being the culture keeper. Because yes, like the onboarding part, that's important to make sure everybody's on the same page and understands the expectations. But I feel like one of the biggest things as a leader, you have to repeat yourself every single day. It's like being a parent. If I'm not starting off team meetings with a culture topic, if we're not using it when we're talking to employees or team members about constructive criticism or a developmental task that we're working on with them, if we're not tying it all back to culture constantly, then they lose the message too. So it's got to be part of everything you do when you're in leadership, talking with your team on individual and on like larger levels too.
So then, how do you celebrate your culture?
Yeah.
We started this with pizza parties. We've got into how to define your culture. How do you keep your culture? How do you celebrate your culture?
I think can be dictated by the size of your team, by the size of your business. For small businesses, it's much easier to be personal in your culture. And so you can individualize the celebrations in some ways. But when we're thinking through, like, how do we bring value to every single person on the team? That's when true celebration really can happen. If I feel valued, if I feel seen as an individual, then I know I'm valued on this team and I'm helping to contribute to the culture. That's why the pizza parties get the bad rap. That is one meal, like one entree, supposed to satisfy the wants and needs and preferences of everybody. So, how do you bring like individual recognition into your celebration? I think that's an important thing that gets missed when we're trying to celebrate our wins.
Yes. And if we can tie our values, which underline our culture, into that individualized celebration, it's a win all the way around because we're reinforcing our culture and our values at the same time we're celebrating somebody.
Have you seen where teams or organizations, or have you been a part of a group that's knocked it out of the park when it comes to celebrating culture?
I had one team and they did several things that celebrated culture from part of the interview process on. And I think part of the reason they had such great retention is because they always constantly, weekly brought it back to this is who we are. And one of the things they did in the meeting was when they saw somebody, a team member, living the culture of the team, living the value system of the team, they would recognize them in the team meeting in front of everybody.
Wow.
Like,
Yeah.
hey, did you see how Sally took care of her client this week? She went above and beyond for them. And what a great example she was for us this week.
You mentioned that they even do it during the interview process. Do you know what that looks like for them? Like, how do they incorporate it into their interview?
If when they were ready to hire somebody, before they hired them, they would have a team interview. So the person would come in front of the whole team and the team was given a heads up. So they would come prepared. They would ask questions. It would be really interactive. And after the candidate left, they would actually talk about the takeaways, but the takeaways were all centered around the team values. Like, what did they see in this person that would cause this person to live out the team values? Then they knew this person was a culture fit. That was part of the earlier interview process, was the team signing off that this was a culture fit.
We already are confident that this person has the skill set and experience to do the job. The purpose of this interview was, is this somebody we all want to be in business with? I can already hear the questions that are probably bubbling up in people's heads. Can this be seen as discriminatory? Can this be seen as those intangible things for why someone may or may not get hired? Do you know, like, did they ever come up against any pushback from people with that type of interview?
No, because you're not hiring people based on the things that are protected. You're not hiring based on the things that aren't protected.
Yeah.
I don't care what race somebody is coming into the job. I'm going to go back to integrity as an example. I
Yeah.
want to know that they have integrity and that it is defined to them as it's defined to me. I don't care what race they are, what religion they are. I don't care about any of that. I want to know that they have integrity the way I defined it and that they can operate in my environment with the way I defined it.
It sounds like there's at least some sort of training or conversation that's had with the team at large before we even get into the interview. So that way they really clearly understand the purpose of this interview. And they've all probably had to go through it. If you had to do the group interview as an interviewee and you're now here with me today as a team member, now you understand what this candidate is about to go through and why it's important, because we've made ourselves a cohesive team.
Yes.
How do organizations, especially if they're small and they're growing, and we're looking for people with the same values, we're looking to build culture, how do we keep it from becoming too homogenous, where now we're stuck in groupthink?
First of all, your core values should be 3 to 7. They're not 20. There are 3 to 7 core values that say this is how you behave within our organization. That doesn't mean that everybody has the same background or the same experience. We want to welcome in some diversity there in ideas and thoughts and ways of thinking. What this is just saying is, hey, we want you to behave in these 3 to 7 areas like this, because this defines really who we are. For instance, and I used integrity as one, learning based may be another one. I bring people into my organization that love to learn, they love to read, they love to expand their thinking. That doesn't mean we all need to expand our thinking the same way.
Yeah. We're on the same topics, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
In fact, the more topics, the better.
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah.
So when it comes to celebrating the big wins and not reducing it down to a pizza party, are there things that you've seen other teams do at a really high level that helps harken back to the values at hand and also brings value to their people, that, hey, we worked hard, we hit this goal, and we want to celebrate with you?
If your team is full of people who love to go celebrate at a happy hour together, I know I brought that up earlier. Go celebrate at a happy hour together. I know of a team actually that they love to party together. They all do. The whole entire team. It is actually part of their culture. And it's not that they party all the time, right?
Yeah.
They are hard workers. They're hugely successful. But I tell you what, their team bonding is around having fun.
Yeah.
And there is nothing wrong with that when that's part of your team culture. So as I made fun of going to happy hour before, and that stresses some people out, on some teams, it doesn't. On some teams, it is, they love having fun together, and they've identified this is what that fun looks like.
I think about our own team at Growth Minded Talent. We're small and mighty. So don't get it wrong here. But we also, when we get together, because we're spread out all over the country, different time zones, different states. And when it's time for us to celebrate our culture, we tend to do it at the end of the year in a retreat, right? We come together, but all of us, we all love to travel. So getting to go do something new, getting to be outside of our normal day-to-day office or setup and going somewhere where the 3 or 4 of us all get together and just get to spend quality time together. Yes, we're working hard, we're setting goals, we're debating, we're driving plans, and we're also just grabbing a meal and having a margarita and enjoying our time together because we don't get that every day, but it is important to all 3 of us.
And as we're getting bigger, we're also seeing that's going to be a challenge to have everybody within the organization. It will start to look different going forward. We do have new employees coming on. It's not so easy for them to be a part of that. So what may work now may not be what works in the future. And it's being aware of that, because if you outgrow what's working now and you continue to do it, you're going to exclude people.
That's the big role of the leader. You have to always have your head on a swivel and be looking at, where's my team at today? What's the makeup of my team? What's important to them? And are we in alignment? And am I doing things to provide opportunities for people to feel seen, valued, and celebrated when it comes to building culture?
As you're doing your celebrations, who in your celebration might you be excluding because they don't enjoy what you're doing?
Yeah. But it's so easy to have that internal speak of, they just don't get it. That might be the story we make up in our own head because we didn't take time to slow down and just ask them the question. I noticed you weren't at happy hour, or you were really quiet at the event this weekend, or whatever it was. Checking in, getting to know them, asking them what's going on, and finding a way to make it important and relevant to them. So no more pizza parties. Everybody who's listening to this episode, you've got much better options out there for building culture in your team and finding ways to recognize the hard work of all your team members. And if you would like help or ideas on building culture or a values alignment exercise with your team, be sure to check us out at growthmindedtalent.com and growthmindedtraining.com for resources around team and culture building.
All right, growth-minded leaders, that's a wrap on today's episode. We hope this sparked some fresh ideas and fueled your drive to build, lead, and grow with purpose. And if something we shared helped shift your perspective, we'd love for you to leave a review. It helps us reach more business builders just like you. Better yet, share this with someone on your team or in your inner circle who's ready to level up their leadership game. Until next time, keep leading boldly, hiring wisely, and training with intention. You're not just building a business, you're shaping a legacy.